Good evening, explorers, and welcome back to another journey to the forgotten corners of our ancient world. Before we start talking about tonight's mysteries, please write in the comment section the name of your country and the time zone you are in. I love seeing how our global community of curious minds comes together. If you enjoy these stories, please like and share them. It would mean a lot to me, and it would help me continue researching these fascinating stories. Tonight, we begin a special trip through time to explore 20 mysterious civilizations that may have existed long before the great floods that changed our world. These aren't just stories about ancient people. They're also about lost knowledge, impossible technologies, and highly advanced civilizations. They make us question everything we thought we knew about the history of humanity. Imagine this. What if the history of human civilization was much older and more complex than we have been taught? What if there are ancient societies under our feet? Did he achieve wonders that we are just starting to understand? As you get ready for bed, let these ancient mysteries wash over you like gentle waves. Each story is more interesting than the last. We will explore civilizations that have fascinated people for centuries, from the sunken cities of Lemura to the advanced technology of Atlantis, and from the celestial cities of the Anasazi to the underground kingdoms of Agartha. Some people say that these cultures had knowledge that modern science is only now rediscovering. Others believe that they had. Talk to beings from other worlds. Tonight, we will look at the evidence, the theories, and the clues they left behind. So relax, close your eyes if you want, and let's start our adventure into the past, where stories meet science and the impossible becomes possible. Chapter 1. The Lost Continent of Lemuria. Some people think that the ruins of the first great civilization of humanity, Lemuria, are hidden under the dark waters of the Pacific Ocean. Mura is one of the most mysterious ancient places. But unlike the more famous Atlantis, the story of Lemuria does not begin with Plato's philosophical writings. Instead, it begins with 19th century scientific observations that led to extraordinary conclusions. The story starts with a curious mystery that interested 19th century scientists who studied nature. They noticed something unusual about the lemurus, a type of primate known for their big eyes and long tails. These creatures lived in Madagascar, near the coast of Africa, and this is also true for India and Southeast Asia. Scientists were puzzled because there were no lemuras in Africa, a continent that separated these populations. How had these animals spread to such distant lands without taking the obvious route? In 1864, British zoologist Philip Sclater suggested a solution that seemed logical at the time. He said that at one time, a huge continent connected these regions. He called this landmass Lemura, after its supposed inhabitants, the lemurs. This continent, his theory suggests that something had gone missing. It vanished beneath the waves of the Pacific Ocean, taking with it a whole chapter of natural history. But here's where the story gets interesting. What started as an attempt to use science to explain how animals are distributed turned out to be something much more extraordinary. People who study the paranormal, those who believe in mystical or supernatural things, and historians who look at alternative ideas, took up Sclater's idea. They changed the hypothetical continent into the place where human civilization first started. According to these new theories, Lemura was more than just a piece of land. Madagascar is being connected to India. It was a huge continent that spanned much of the Pacific Ocean. Picture a tropical paradise larger than today's Australia, stretching from the coast of California to the shores of Japan. Experts imagined what the world was like in the past. They thought it had tall mountains, green valleys, clear rivers, and beautiful cities. They thought the first humans built these cities. The Lemurians, as these ancient beings were called, had amazing powers. Some accounts suggest that they stood 36 meters tall and had elongated skulls that housed enlarged brains capable of telepathic communication. The people who lived there long ago had special skills. Some accounts suggest that they stood 36 meters tall and had elongated skulls that housed enlarged brains capable of telepathic communication. Others say they were the first humans to develop language, writing, and complex social structures. These structures later spread throughout the world when the children of Lemura migrated to other continents. What makes Lemura's theory interesting is that it tries to explain several things. Mysteries from the past. Have you ever wondered why ancient megalithic structures appear on isolated Pacific islands, such as Easter Island? Or how did Polynesian cultures develop such advanced navigation techniques? Lemura's supporters say that these are traditions that were brought to the island from the mainland. The statues of Easter Island, those huge stone heads that look out to sea, seem to have a new meaning here. Instead of being the work of a small, separate group, they could represent a memory of the architectural techniques used by the Lemuran people is fading. The accuracy with which these statues were carved, transported, and put up across the island has always puzzled archaeologists. Some of these boulders weigh as much as 80 tons. It's hard to believe, but they were moved long distances from their quarries. We still don't know how they were moved. Then there are the mysterious ruins found throughout the Pacific. Off the coast of Japan lies Yonaguni, an underwater structure that some believe was man-made. This step pyramid was discovered in the 1980s. It features what? They look like carved stairways, walls, and even drainage systems. Conventional archaeology says that it's a natural formation shaped by erosion, but Lemura theorists say it's proof of their lost civilization. The dating is particularly interesting. If Yonaguni is man-made, it was built when sea levels were much lower. This would have been during the last ice age, more than 10,000 years ago. This date is exactly when experts think Lemura could have been, and then it could have been covered by rising sea levels. But Lemura's influence, it's said to extend far beyond architecture. Ancient texts from different cultures seem to preserve memories of this lost civilization. Tamil literature from southern India talks about Kumari Kandam, a continent that disappeared into the Indian Ocean and was home to an advanced Tamil civilization. According to these stories, the land was destroyed in a huge natural disaster, and the people who survived had to escape to the area that is now India. Kumari Kandam and Lemuria are very similar. Both describe vast. It is found in the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Both were supposedly home to advanced civilizations, and both met their end due to oceanic disasters. Some researchers say that these are not separate legends, but different cultural memories of the same historical event. It's interesting that these stories are found in cultures that didn't interact with each other. The Dreamtime stories of the Australian Aborigines tell of a great flood that covered vast lands where their ancestors lived. Pacific Island cultures from Polynesia to Micronesia, there are legends about floods that describe the submergence of large land masses. Even Native American tribes along the Pacific coast have traditions about ancient lands that disappeared beneath the waves. The technology of the Lemurians is almost too good to be true, but it's worth thinking about because of how fast we're learning about consciousness and energy. Some accounts describe the Lemurians as masters of what we might today call psychic abilities. They supposedly communicated telepathically. They could move objects with their minds. They also had a natural understanding of energy. This allowed them to build in harmony with the earth itself. This brings us to one of the most interesting parts of the Lemurian theory. The idea is that these ancient people achieved technological advances in ways that were totally different from those of our modern civilization. We've developed external tools and machines, but the Lemurians supposedly developed internal capabilities that enhanced their natural human abilities to extraordinary levels. Let's think for a moment about how this might explain some of the seemingly impossible achievements of ancient cultures. The accuracy of ancient megalithic constructions around the world. The pyramids were built using math and astronomy. The ability of ancient peoples to move huge stones without using machines. It's easier to understand these mysteries when we remember that early humans may have had abilities that we've forgotten or lost. The end of Lemura, according to most accounts, were written after a series of disastrous events. Some people describe massive earthquakes that split the continent into pieces. Others speak of volcanic eruptions on an unimaginable scale, darkening the sky with ash and poisoning the air. The last blow came from the ocean itself. Tsunamis destroyed the land and the ancient civilization. But this is what makes the story truly disturbing. It seems that the Lemurians knew their time was coming to an end. Old stories. Talk about amazing libraries that are locked away in underwater vaults, with special knowledge written on materials that won't fade and hidden in secret spots all over the world. Some theorists believe that these hidden repositories still exist and are waiting to be discovered by future generations. They believe that these repositories will reclaim humanity's lost heritage. The people who survived the destruction of Lemuria supposedly went all over the world, taking with them pieces of their ancient knowledge. This, according to the theory, explains why. Architectural techniques, astronomical observations, and similar mythological themes are present in cultures around the world. The people who built Stonehenge, the architects of the Egyptian pyramids, and the ancient Babylonians who studied stars, all might have learned about the secrets of Lemuria. As you fall asleep tonight, imagine yourself on the shores of ancient Lemuria during its golden age. Picture huge cities made of stone and glass rising from tropical valleys. Their spires reach into the clouds, reflecting the light of two moons. Picture this. The ports were filled with ships that we had never seen before. Ships that travel not only across the ocean, but also between different dimensions. Think about the libraries where knowledge gathered over many years was kept in special containers, able to store information much more than books could. Whether Lemuria is real or just in our imaginations, its history teaches us something important. Maybe it stands for our desire for a time when people could achieve great things, or for our gut feelings. Our species used to have abilities that we have forgotten. As you drift off to sleep, let the mystery of Lemuria remind you that the history of human civilization may be far more extraordinary than we have ever imagined. Chapter 2. Atlantis and Crystal Technology. Of all the lost civilizations that we have heard about, Atlantis is the most famous. But even though it's well known, most people only know the main points of Plato's original ideas. Tonight, we will explore the secrets of this famous civilization, especially the advanced technologies that they had and that supposedly powered their society and ultimately led to its destruction. The story of Atlantis starts with the Greek philosopher Plato around 360 BC. But according to his account, the information was much older. Plato said that the story came from Solon, one of the most important lawmakers of Athens. Solon learned the story from Egyptian priests during his travels. These priests, who were responsible for maintaining records. It spoke of a powerful civilization that had existed 9,000 years before Solon's time. This would place Atlantis approximately 11,500 years ago. Think about that timeline for a moment. This means that Atlantis was successful and flourished during the end of the last ice age. This was a time when, according to most archaeologists, humans were just starting to grow crops for food. However, Plato's account describes a civilization that would have been advanced even by today's standards. The priest spoke of a naval power that was unlike anything else. The ancient world had never seen technology like this before. It was almost magical. But this is where the story gets really interesting. While Plato's dialogues are the main source of information about Atlantis, many other sources have added to the mystery over time. Ancient Egyptian texts, Mayan goddesses, and medieval European manuscripts all mention an advanced civilization that was destroyed by a flood. Some researchers say that these are not separate legends. They say that they're different cultural memories of the same historical event. The most interesting part of modern research into Atlantis is the idea that they had energy technology. Many sources say that the Atlanteans were very skilled with crystal technology. Some sources say that they were so skilled that it seems impossible according to our current understanding of physics. Picture huge crystals that were the center of the Atlantean civilization. These were more than just decorative gems. Systems that use energy from the environment and direct natural forces. The largest of these crystals, sometimes called the Great Crystal or the Firestone, was said to be located in a temple in the center of the main city. This crystal, described as several stories high and completely clear, was said to be both an energy source and a way to communicate. The technology surrounding these crystals seems like something out of our most advanced science fiction. The Atlanteans used smaller crystals. They're tuned to specific frequencies to power their vehicles, illuminate their cities, and even enhance their own consciousness. Some stories say that aircraft can move through the sky without making noise. These aircraft are powered by crystals that can change the forces of gravity. Others speak of submarines that could travel great distances underwater, guided by crystalline technology that provided them with perfect navigation. What makes these accounts particularly intriguing is how they seem to predict technologies that we are only now beginning to understand. Modern science has discovered that crystals can store and transmit energy. Quartz crystals are an important part of most electronic devices. We've learned that crystals can be programmed with information and can keep that programming for very long periods of time. This has been shown through computers and radios. Researchers are even exploring the possibility of using crystals for quantum computing and energy storage. But the crystal technology of Atlantis was supposedly much better than what we have achieved. These crystals, they were supposedly grown, not mined, in special chambers where the environment could be precisely controlled. The process of growing involved not only physical conditions such as temperature and pressure, but also mental and spiritual influences. People say that Atlantean crystal cultivators used meditation, intention, and even sound to influence how their crystals formed. This created structures that were perfectly suited to specific purposes. People said that this technology could be used in many ways. That's impressive. Medical crystals can diagnose illnesses by analyzing a person's energy field and then provide healing frequencies tailored to their specific needs. Communication crystals let people connect instantly over long distances. They worked like our modern internet, but without the need for physical infrastructure. Transport crystals could make objects float, which would make it possible to build large buildings without using the mechanical devices we rely on today. One of the most interesting parts of Atlantean crystal technology was supposed to be its integration with consciousness itself. Atlantean devices were different from modern technology because they didn't need buttons, switches, or keyboards to control them. Instead, they responded straight away to the user's thoughts and intentions. An expert operator could control complex systems simply by focusing their mind in a specific way, making the boundary between user and device almost disappear. This combination of technology and awareness could explain some of the. This is a very interesting story about Atlantis. If their devices could amplify and direct human mental energy, it would be possible to achieve effects that seem impossible according to our current knowledge. If we can enhance our consciousness with technology, we could move huge stones with our minds, communicate over great distances through mental projection, and even manipulate weather patterns. This is the description of the architecture of Atlantis. Various accounts show how this technology combines advanced engineering with crystalline technology. The city was supposedly built in concentric circles, with canals connecting the different districts and allowing boats to move throughout the city. At the center stood the temple that housed the Great Crystal, whose energy radiated outwards through a network of smaller crystals located throughout the city. People said the buildings were amazing feats of engineering. They were made from materials that didn't match anything else. Our experience today. Some accounts describe walls that appear to be made of compressed light. These walls are translucent, but stronger than steel. Others mention buildings that can be changed to different sizes, rooms that can be made bigger or smaller by using crystal matrices inside them. It seems that Atlantis farming systems were also very advanced. Crystalline technology allowed them to do the following: improve crop growth, control local weather patterns, accelerate the normal growth and changes that plants go through. The city's gardens produced plenty of food all year, thanks to systems that made the most of every part of how plants grew. But perhaps the most interesting use of Atlantean crystal technology was in making people's minds work in new ways. Some accounts say that the Atlanteans used special crystals to improve their mental abilities. This allowed them to reach levels of consciousness that we might think of as supernatural. Some people say that crystals can make you more aware. They can apparently help you communicate without words, see into the future, and access what some people call universal knowledge. This brings us to one of the darkest parts of Atlantis history. Many accounts say that the same technology that made their civilization possible also led to its destruction. As the Atlanteans became more skilled with crystal technology, some began to use it for purposes contrary to natural harmony. Weapons that use crystal energy. It could destroy whole areas. Mind control devices could override an individual's will. Technology that changes the weather could create storms and droughts in other countries. The corruption of Atlantean society supposedly began when different groups started using crystal technology to gain power over others. What started as a way to raise awareness and create prosperity turned into a way to control and dominate. The Great Crystal, which had once been carefully kept safe by wise priests. It was influenced by people who wanted to use its power for their own benefit. Most people say that the last disaster happened when Atlantean scientists tried to use energy sources that they didn't understand. Some stories describe experiments with a great crystal that created vibrations in the earth itself, causing huge earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Others suggest that their attempts to create increasingly powerful weapons caused explosions that literally tore the continent apart. It didn't destroy everything right away. Several accounts describe a series of catastrophes that lasted several years. These catastrophes caused the Atlantean civilization to collapse. The Atlanteans' technological arrogance caused their civilization to collapse. First, the earthquakes split the continent into islands. Then volcanic eruptions darkened the sky and poisoned the air. Eventually, the sea rose and swallowed up the rest of the land. It did this in huge tsunamis. The tsunamis carried the last signs of Atlantean civilization into the depths of the ocean. But this is what makes the story of Atlantis is important to our world today. The ways it resembles our own technological advancements. Like the Atlanteans, we have developed technologies that give us unparalleled power over our environment. Like them, we must use that power wisely and not destructively. The story of Atlantis is both inspiring and cautionary. It shows us what human civilization can achieve, but also warns us about the dangers of overconfidence in technology. Some researchers think that pieces of Atlantis' crystal technology are still out there, hidden in secret places around the world, or kept alive in certain spiritual traditions. Others suggest that our modern rediscovery of the properties of crystals is actually a rediscovery of ancient knowledge. They say that it is a gradual return to technological principles that were once well understood but were lost with the destruction of Atlantis. As you fall asleep, picture yourself walking through a beautiful, clear, ancient tunnel. Atlantis was at its strongest. Imagine walls that glow with a light that shows a rainbow. The rainbow changes and moves with your mood. Picture gardens where flowers of every size and color grow, fed by fields of pure energy that make each plant look like a work of art. Think about the harbor where ships from all over the world arrive. Their engines make a humming sound that matches the great sound that helps keep the whole civilization going. Does Atlantis exist in reality, or is it just in our imaginations? Its story still inspires us to achieve great things. As you drift off to sleep, let the mystery of Atlantis remind you that people can do more than they think. In the future, we may rediscover the technologies of the past. Chapter 3. The Anunnaki and Ancient Mesopotamia. In the fertile valleys between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, where human civilization supposedly began, lies one of the most controversial mysteries of our ancient past. The story of the Anunnaki, written on Sumerian tablets thousands of years old, challenges what we believe about the origins of humanity. Mysteries of the past that people have disagreed about. The story of the Anunnaki, written on Sumerian tablets thousands of years old, challenges our beliefs about the origins of humanity. It suggests that our earliest ancestors may have met beings from other worlds. The Sumerians, who first appeared around 4500 BC in what is now Iraq, created the world's first written language, the first cities, and the first complex systems of government. This is what makes their achievements so great. This is confusing. They appeared suddenly, without any obvious development. One day, there were scattered nomadic tribes. Soon after, there were sophisticated urban centers with advanced knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and engineering. Think about how civilizations normally develop. People usually start as simple farming communities, then become villages, and then cities. Each change builds on what they learned from their ancestors. But Sumerian civilization suddenly appeared. The historical scene is almost completely formed, as if someone had given them an instruction manual for building complex societies. The ancient Sumerian creation myths, written on thousands of uneven clay tablets, tell a story that is similar to science fiction. According to these old texts, a group called the Anunnaki came to Earth from a planet they called Nibiru. They were not gods in the supernatural sense, but rather advanced beings from another world who possessed technology that seemed divine to early humans. The word Anunnaki is fascinating. In Sumerian, it literally means those who came from heaven to earth. This is a very specific way of speaking that we might otherwise dismiss as primitive mythology. The tablets describe these beings in great detail, going beyond typical religious symbolism. They include physical descriptions, technological capabilities, and even political conflicts between different groups of the Anunnaki. According to the tablets, the Anunnaki arrived on Earth approximately 450,000 years ago. They initially came to mine gold. Yes, gold is a precious metal that we still value today. But their interest was not for decoration or the economy. The tablets suggest that they needed the gold to process the atmosphere of their home planet. The texts don't make it clear if this was to fix a damaged atmosphere or to create protective shields against cosmic radiation, but they always highlight how important gold was for the survival of the Anunnaki. The first mining operations were reportedly carried out by Anunnaki workers, but after thousands of years of work, these workers started to rebel. The tablets describe conflicts and complaints that are very similar to modern labor disputes. According to the Samaritan texts, the solution was to create a new species that could serve as workers. This new species would be a mix of the genetic material of the Anunnaki and that of primates that existed on Earth. This is where the story becomes particularly interesting from a modern point of view. The tablets describe genetic engineering techniques that were allegedly used to create humanity. They speak of combining the essence of the Anunnaki with Earth's clay. Some researchers believe that this means that the Anunnaki were performing advanced genetic manipulation. It seems that the process required many attempts and improvements before it could produce human beings that were able to survive. The lead scientist on this project was supposedly an Anunnaki woman named Nema, although she's also known by other names in different texts. Her work is similar to modern discussions about genetic engineering. For example, it mentions ideas that the ancient Samaritans did not have. You can understand this by just watching what happens. They describe the way scientists change the basic parts of life itself. They combine genetic material in exact ways to get specific results. What makes this particularly fascinating is how the texts describe the challenges faced during human creation. The first attempts at this produced beings with various defects or undesirable characteristics. Some are too strong, while others were too weak. Some lived too long, while others did not live long enough. The process of refining human genetics apparently took many generations before they produced beings that could work and were not dangerous to their creators. The Anunnaki's leadership structure, as explained in the tablets, was complicated and had different levels. The supreme leader was called Anunnaka, ruler of their homeworld. His two sons, Enlil and Enki, were assigned different responsibilities on Earth. Enlil was in charge of the land and the atmosphere, and Enki was in charge of the water and the genetic engineering projects. The way people were divided into groups, led to conflicts that supposedly shaped the early history of humanity. The relationship between these two half-brothers was apparently full of conflict from the beginning. Enlil saw humans as temporary workers who should remain submissive and primitive. Enki had been directly involved in creating humans. He developed what the tablets describe as affection for his creations and wanted to help them develop their potential. This conflict between the two Anunnaki leaders was said to. It has had a long-lasting impact on human development. The technology that the Anunnaki created appears to be very advanced, even compared to what we have today. The tablets describe flying vehicles that could travel between Earth and their home planet, underwater bases, and weapons that could destroy entire cities. They speak of communication devices that let people talk instantly over long distances and medical technology that could make people live much longer. One of the most interesting things about Anunnaki technology was their supposed mastery of genetics and biological manipulation. They're said to have created humans, and they also allegedly modified several Earth species for different purposes. Some accounts describe the creation of hybrid creatures that perform specific functions in their operations. These creatures may have inspired later myths about griffins, sphinxes, and other legendary creatures. The tablets also describe advanced mining and manufacturing operations that the Anunnaki established around the world. It is said to be found in Mesopotamia, as well as in Africa, South America, and other places with a lot of minerals. Some researchers think that the ancient mining operations found in these areas might be proof of the Anunnaki's activities. They believe that some of these sites use advanced techniques that are older than known human civilizations. The architectural achievements attributed to the influence of the Anunnaki are equally impressive. The tablets describe how the massive temples and cities were built. They used techniques that made it look easy to move huge stone blocks. Some researchers think that the megalithic structures found around the world, from the pyramids of Egypt to the stone platforms of Baalbek in Lebanon, could be examples of construction projects by the Anunnaki or buildings created by humans using Anunnaki technology. An interesting part of the Anunnaki story is that they supposedly stopped getting involved in human affairs. According to the tablets, about 4,000 years ago, the Anunnaki leaders decided to stop managing Earth directly and let humans develop on their own. However, the withdrawal was not complete. It seems that they left behind certain bloodlines that carried more Anunnaki genes. These bloodlines were destined to serve as intermediaries. These special bloodlines supposedly became the leaders of the early civilizations, the pharaohs, kings, and priests. These leaders maintained contact with the Anunnaki through special rituals and technologies. Some historians who study the past suggest that these bloodlines, they're still around today. They form secret societies that protect old knowledge and stay in touch with alien beings. The Anunnaki's influence is seen in more than just Samaritan texts. Stories like this are found in cultures around the world, although they often have different names and details. The Hindu Vedas are old texts that talk about demons. These demons were advanced beings that came from space and interacted with early humans. Ancient Egyptian texts describe the Neteru, divine beings who established civilization along the Nile. Even Hebrew texts are included. The Bible and other books refer to the Nephilim, who were the sons of God. These giants mated with human women and had children that were half human and half giant. What's interesting is that these different cultures have similar descriptions of the technologies and abilities of their ancient benefactors. Vimanas are flying vehicles that appear in Sanskrit texts. In Egyptian accounts, they're described as the boats of the gods. In Hebrew writings, they are referred to as the wheels within wheels of Ezekiel. We have advanced weapons, the ability to manipulate genes, and the capacity to communicate over long distances. It appears in different forms in many ancient traditions. Modern space exploration has added new information to the story of the Anunnaki. The search for Planet X, also known as Nibiru, is now a major astronomical project. Although no large planet has been confirmed in the outer solar system, gravitational evidence suggests that something massive exists beyond Pluto's orbit. It's not clear if this is the home world of the Anunnaki or just another natural celestial body. Genetic evidence about the origins of humans also raises interesting questions. Modern DNA analysis shows that humans carry genetic markers that other species on Earth do not have. This suggests that humans' development involves some kind of genetic bottleneck or unusual evolutionary leap. Conventional science explains this through natural evolutionary processes, but some researchers suggest that it could be evidence of genetic modification by advanced beings. The psychological and cultural impact of the Anunnaki story continues too. It has a big impact on today's world. Our fascination with ancient astronauts, our search for extraterrestrial intelligence, and our development of genetic engineering technologies seem to reflect the themes first expressed in those ancient Sumerian tablets. The Anunnaki were either real beings from another world or symbols of human potential. Their story still inspires us to overcome our current limitations. One of the most interesting parts of the Anunnaki story is how this text tries to explain some of the mysteries of human development. Why did civilization appear so suddenly? Why do people want to explore space and look for other planets? Why do we have such a complicated relationship with authority and hierarchy? The Anunnaki story offers answers to these questions, suggesting that our current behavior patterns were established during our early interactions with advanced beings. As you drift off to sleep, imagine yourself in one of those ancient Mesopotamian cities during the height of the Anunnaki's influence. The Anunnaki had a big influence. Picture huge ziggurats that act as landing pads for vehicles coming from space. Picture people and Anunnaki working together to change the landscape. They use technologies that make it easy to move huge rocks, like moving furniture. Visit gardens where scientists are breeding plants and animals to create new species. Visit laboratories where scientists are planning and carrying out experiments to see how the human species will evolve in the future. The question is whether the Anunnaki were real beings or powerful archetypes. Their story, born from the collective unconscious of humanity, reminds us that our origins may be far more complex and extraordinary than we imagine. As you drift off to sleep, let the mystery of the Anunnaki open your mind to possibilities that go beyond our current understanding of human history and potential. Chapter 4. The Hyperia and the Polar Civilization. In the far north, where the winter winds that chill the rest of the world don't reach, ancient Greek texts speak of a mysterious land called Hyperia. It was not an ordinary northern territory. It was a place described as a paradise where the sun shone continuously for 6 months of the year, where people lived for 1,000 years, and where advanced knowledge flourished that, to our understanding, seems almost magical. The name Hyperia literally means beyond the north wind. Ancient Greek writers like Herodotus and Pindar wrote about this amazing civilization, showing it with a mix of respect and amazement. This is what makes their accounts so interesting. They didn't treat Hyperia as a made-up story. They wrote about it as a real place, describing diplomatic contacts, trade relations, and even specific people who had traveled between Greece and this northern paradise. They didn't treat Hyperia as a made-up story. They wrote about it as a real place, describing diplomatic contacts, trade relations, and even specific people who had traveled between Greece and this northern paradise. According to these ancient sources, Hyperia was the original home of Apollo, the Greek god of light, music, and prophecy. Apollo supposedly returned to Hyperia to spend the winter months every 19 years. He left his sanctuary in Delhi to spend time among the Hyperorians. This detail is really interesting. It suggests that the person knows a lot about astronomical cycles. The 19-year period mentioned is the same as the Metonic cycle, which combines the lunar and solar calendars. But the ancient Greeks were not the only ones who spoke of an advanced civilization in the polar region. In Norse mythology, Ultima Thule is a northern land beyond the known world where wisdom and magical knowledge were kept. Hindu texts mention Shveta Dvapar, a white island in the Northern Ocean. It is home to advanced beings who have a lot of knowledge. It is part of the laws of the cosmos. Even ancient Chinese sources mention northern kingdoms where wise men lived in harmony with nature. What's interesting is that all of these stories describe the polar region as a warm, tropical place, not a frozen wasteland. Ancient writers talk about the land being full of plants and trees, with rivers that flow, and a climate so perfect that the people who lived there had a good life. This description seems impossible based on what we currently know. It's about conditions that are very cold. But what if the Earth's climate was very different in the past? Modern geological evidence shows that Earth's climate has changed a lot over time. Fossils show that tropical plants grew in Antarctica and that the magnetic poles have shifted several times throughout history. Could there have been times when the polar regions had the kind of climate described in ancient stories? Hyperaria? Some researchers think that Hyperaria could be a cultural memory of the last interglacial period, which was about 120,000 years ago. During that time, global temperatures were much warmer than today. During this time, much of the Arctic Ocean might have been ice-free, and the northern regions could have been home to the kind of advanced civilization described in ancient texts. The Hyperarians were said to be very long-lived and wise. Old stories say that they lived for 1,000 years. They spent their whole lives learning, creating, and growing spiritually. They were supposed to be experts in music and poetry, creators of amazing architecture, and possessors of scientific knowledge that was even better than the achievements of classical Greece. One of the most interesting things about Hyperorian civilization was its supposed connection to the cosmos. Ancient texts say that they knew a lot about astronomical cycles, solar energies, and what we now call geomagnetic phenomena. They built their cities in harmony with these cosmic influences, creating architecture that enhanced and concentrated natural energies. The capital, Hyperia, was built around a huge temple dedicated to Apollo. The temple was constructed entirely from a golden metal that never tarnished or corroded. This temple was described as perfectly circular. Its design concentrated solar energy and created acoustic properties that enhanced musical and vocal performances. Some accounts. The temple might have made musical sounds that went along with the movements of the planets. The Greeks called these sounds music of the spheres. The technology used by the Hyperarians was advanced, but not obvious. Instead of the mechanical devices we think of as signs of an advanced civilization, they supposedly developed ways to work with natural energies that allowed them to achieve amazing results without external tools. They could control the weather by understanding the energy in the atmosphere. They could travel great distances because of their knowledge of magnetic fields. They could even influence the growth of plants and animals using what we now call bioenergetic manipulation. Transportation in Hyperaria is thought to have relied on methods different from those used today. The Hyperorians had figured out how to project their consciousness, which let them travel really fast over long distances. Some accounts describe people's ability to visit other lands by focusing their thoughts, appearing in distant places. They stayed in the polar paradise while their bodies were still there. The idea of consciousness-based travel might sound like something from a fantasy novel, but it's important to know that similar notions can be found in many mystical traditions around the world. In Tibetan Buddhism, there are practitioners known as lung GPA who can travel great distances by harnessing their body's natural energy. Australian Aboriginal traditions talk about dream journeys. In these journeys, people's consciousness travels along song lines. Song lines are paths that connect sacred sites across the continent. Maybe the Hyperarians. They had developed these natural human abilities to an amazing degree. Many people say that Hyperaria's decline was not caused by wars or natural disasters. Instead, it happened because people started to ignore the real world. This happened as conditions on Earth became less good for their advanced civilization. The Hyperarians supposedly left our world and moved to a higher dimension, where they continued to exist as a civilization. Some people say that their physical presence in our world became less strong. This brings us to one of the. Here are the most interesting parts of the Hyperarian law. The idea is that their civilization still exists, but on a different level of reality that doesn't often interact with our physical world. Some traditions say that Hyperaria is a parallel dimension that can be visited sometimes, by people who have strong spiritual growth or sensitivity to subtle energies. Researchers have been looking for signs of hyperaria in the north. They are looking for evidence of ancient, advanced civilizations. Some people think that the Canadian Arctic, Greenland, and northern Siberia might be the lost polar paradise. Although there is no definitive archaeological evidence, some researchers believe that the strange structures and objects found in these regions could be clues. One particularly interesting discovery is the existence of hot water oases in otherwise frozen polar regions. These areas, heated by geothermal energy, are often called polyna. They create zones without ice that can support life even in the harshest Arctic conditions. Could these oases have been the foundation for a polar civilization that thrived when the world was more habitable? The stories about the Hyperarians also include interesting details about their interactions with other ancient civilizations. Greek accounts describe Hyperbian ambassadors visiting Delos. They brought sacred objects and maintained diplomatic relations with Mediterranean cultures. These ambassadors were said to be easy to recognize because of their very tall height. They have pale skin and speak many languages fluently. Some accounts suggest that the Hyperarians taught and advised other civilizations, sharing their advanced knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and the natural sciences. This role as guardians of wisdom and cultural transmitters could explain why similar knowledge appears in diverse ancient cultures around the world. The Maya did sophisticated astronomical calculations, and the ancient Egyptians were advanced metallurgists. These things show a connection between the two civilizations. The idea of a hollow earth adds to the mystery of Hyperaria. Many traditions talk about entrances to underground worlds in the polar regions. These traditions say that advanced civilizations live in these worlds, and they are not affected by the disasters that happen on the surface of the earth. Could the Hyperorians have built underground cities that were connected by tunnels? Exploration of the polar regions has revealed extensive cave systems and underground rivers that, in theory, could be a place where hidden civilizations exist. Huge underground lakes have been found under the ice on the ground in Antarctica. This shows that ecosystems with liquid water can exist even in very cold polar conditions. Although there is no proof of advanced civilizations in these hidden environments, the possibility is intriguing. As you drift off to sleep, picture the golden spires of Hyperaria rising from a landscape where it rains even at the North Pole. Picture gardens filled with flowers, bloom in patterns that mirror the movements of the constellations. Libraries should be places where knowledge is stored in crystalline matrices that preserve information for millennia, not in books. Picture a magnificent temple where the music of the spheres echoes through structures crafted to align with cosmic vibrations, yielding a sound that resonates deeply within the essence of being. Whether Hyperaria was a real place or just a symbol of how humans can connect with the universe, its story still inspires people. People who want to understand the most mysterious parts of our planet's history. As you drift off to sleep, let the mystery of Hyperaria remind you that paradise doesn't have to be a place we seek. It's a state of consciousness we can create. Chapter 5 is about the Lemuran colonies of Emo. We've already explored the main continent of Lemura, and tonight we're going to learn about the history of its colonies. We're going to focus especially on the civilization of Emo in the Pacific Ocean. This is not just a retelling of the same story. It's an exploration of how the Lemuran civilizations supposedly spread across the Pacific through a network of island civilizations that may have existed long before the Lemuran civilization. This is not a simple retelling of the same story. It is an exploration of how the Lemurian civilizations supposedly spread across the Pacific. They spread through a network of island civilizations that may have existed long before any known human settlement. Researchers have been confused for over 100 years about the difference between Lemuria and Emo. Some think they are the same civilization. Others think they are different but related. According to the most detailed accounts, Emo was actually a later development. It was a group of island civilizations founded by explorers from Lemur. who traveled eastward across the Pacific Ocean during the golden age of their civilization. Imagine the Pacific Ocean as a highway connecting many large islands and small continents, not as the vast, empty space we know today. The Mervan civilization is thought to have been made up of 7 large groups of islands. Each island group was known for different aspects of culture and technology, but all of them used advanced navigation techniques and shared spiritual beliefs. People say that the capital of Mo was located there, on an island that is roughly the same size as the Hawaiian chain today, although it is much more complex and has more volcanic peaks. This central island is believed to have been an important meeting point for the entire Pacific civilization. Representatives from all the colonized worlds would gather there to share knowledge and coordinate their development. The history of Mova is particularly interesting because it tries to solve some of the mysteries of the Pacific. The huge stone statues, Easter Island's precise stone platforms, Tonga's underwater structures off the coast of Japan, and the advanced seafaring traditions of Polynesian cultures seem to suggest the existence of a previously vast Pacific civilization. The technology of the Mu is thought to be different from that of their Lemuran ancestors in important ways. The Lemurans were known for their expertise in crystal technology and consciousness-based skills. On the other hand, the Mu civilization is said to have focused more on developing practical applications. These are the principles. They created what some people call living ships. These ships weren't built, but grown using a technology that combined organic materials with crystalline energy systems. These living ships were said to be able to make incredible voyages, navigating the vast Pacific with a precision that would make our modern GPS systems look bad. They could travel underwater when necessary, fly above the surface during storms, and even venture beyond the Earth's atmosphere for shorter trips. The navigation system was based on an understanding of the energy lines that run through the planet, which some now call ley lines. It was also based on a deep attunement to the movements of the stars and fluctuations in the magnetic field. The Mo colonies weren't randomly scattered across the Pacific. According to different stories, they were found in certain places that matched up with energy points on the planet's magnetic field. Each colony was said to be a control station for global energy patterns. It's a local place where people can use that knowledge to solve real-life problems, like agriculture, managing the climate, and predicting earthquakes. The farming systems developed by the Mo colonists were said to be revolutionary. They supposedly created floating gardens that could move with the ocean currents. This would maximize both nutrient absorption and protection from storms. These floating farms were anchored to the ocean floor by energy beams instead of cables. This meant that they could rise and fall with the tides. They kept their connection to the colony's main energy systems. On land, farmers in Missouri developed irrigation systems that used natural energy flows to improve how much crops grew. These terraces were not only carved into the hillsides, but were also designed to channel what Mo called terrestrial energy into patterns that increased plant growth and created perfect microclimates for specific crops. Some researchers think that the complex terrace systems found throughout the Pacific Islands could be. These advanced agricultural technologies are in poor condition. The design of the Mo colonies was reportedly meant to go along with the energies of the ocean and atmosphere. The buildings were built using techniques that allowed them to bend with the ground during earthquakes without falling down, and their materials were said to get stronger over time by absorbing and using different forms of energy from the environment. The most remarkable structures were said to be the resonance chambers found in It is in the middle of each major colony. These chambers were designed to amplify and concentrate both sound and what the Mo called vital energy. This created spaces where consciousness could be enhanced and direct communication with other colonies could be maintained. Some accounts describe these chambers as capable of projecting images and sounds over great distances, serving both as communication devices and educational tools. Reports say that the social structure of the Mo colonies was more egalitarian than that of most ancient civilizations. Instead of having strict levels of authority, people were chosen for leadership positions based on how well they could work with natural energies and contribute to the good of the group. This was based on their birth or wealth. This system is thought to have led to communities where people could develop as individuals, as long as it benefited the community as a whole. Mo's educational systems were said to be particularly advanced. They focused not only on intellectual knowledge, but also on developing each individual's natural psychic and intuitive abilities. Reports say that children were tested early to see what they were naturally good at. This could be working with crystals, communicating with plants and animals, navigating by the stars, or manipulating energy fields for construction and healing. One of the most interesting things about Mo civilization was its supposed knowledge of biotechnology. They supposedly developed techniques to make plants and animals better suited to their environments. Some accounts describe dolphins and whales as willing partners in underwater exploration and communication. Their natural sonar abilities were enhanced by Mo biotechnology to create living communication networks spanning the entire Pacific. The Mu's artistic achievements were said to be spectacular. They combined their advanced understanding of sound, light, and energy into creations that could directly affect consciousness. Their music supposedly used harmonics that could. They created specific emotional and mental feelings. Their visual art used crystals and energy-sensitive materials that changed color and pattern based on the viewer's emotional state. Most people think that the end of the Mo civilization happened because of problems in the Earth and arguments inside the civilization. As the Pacific tectonic plates became more active, the energy lines on which Mo technology depended began to shift and fluctuate. This disruption is believed to have. It affected everything from their transportation systems to their agricultural platforms. It slowly destroyed the foundations of their civilization. Some people say that different Mo colonies had conflicts because they didn't agree on how to respond to these changes. Some people wanted to use their technology to try to make the geological situation stable. Others believed they should prepare to leave and go to other parts of the world. These disagreements supposedly led to the first wars in Mo's history. The conflicts. This made their civilization weaker just when they needed to be united. The final destruction of Mo is said to have come through a series of massive earthquakes and volcanic eruptions that shattered the island chains and submerged most of the land beneath the waves of the Pacific Ocean. However, the end of Mo is said to have been a gradual process, unlike the sudden destruction that often describes the end of other lost civilizations. This gradual process gave many of its inhabitants time to escape and establish new settlements elsewhere. It's the best in the world. People who survived Mo's destruction are said to have spread across the Pacific. They brought pieces of their advanced knowledge with them. These pieces of knowledge became part of various Native American, Asian, and Polynesian cultures. This could explain why so many civilizations in the Pacific share similar stories, building techniques, and knowledge of stars, even though they did not seem to have met each other. Some researchers suggest that the famous Polynesian navigation techniques. Islanders were able to cross thousands of kilometers of open ocean using only their observations of the stars, waves, and wind patterns. These could be simplified versions of Mo's navigation methods. These techniques are very precise. They are as accurate as our modern GPS systems. This suggests that the knowledge base is much larger than the simple tools used. The statues of Easter Island, those huge stone heads that have confused archaeologists for a very long time, become important when we think about them being from the Mo civilization. The carvings are very detailed, the statues are very big, and they face inward, not out to the sea. This suggests that the people who made them had knowledge and goals that were different from what we would expect from a small island community. New discoveries underwater near some Pacific islands have added new information to the mystery of the Moa. They've found structures that look man-made at depths where the land was dry during times when the sea level was lower. Conventional archaeology attributes. Some researchers think that natural geological formations may show that there were advanced civilizations in the Pacific before humans settled there. The spiritual traditions associated with the Moa focused on harmony between human consciousness and natural forces. Moai spirituality is different from other religions because it does not believe that a god or goddess is outside the natural world. Moai spirituality is based on the idea that there is an energy that connects all life on Earth. This approach is said to have allowed the Moa people to work with natural forces. Instead of trying to control them, they tried to create a sustainable civilization that could have lasted forever in stable conditions. As you drift off to sleep, imagine sailing on one of these living ships across the ancient Pacific. Watch the islands rise out of the morning mist like emerald jewels in a sea of gold. Picture gardens that float like green clouds on top of the ocean. Their crystalline energy systems create patterns of light that dance beneath the waves. Imagine the MO colonies were connected by a large resonance chamber. This allowed them to communicate with each other. They shared knowledge and wisdom, even though they were thousands of kilometers apart. Whether MO existed as described or represents a symbolic expression of humanity's potential for global cooperation and environmental harmony, its story continues to inspire those who imagine a world where technology serves consciousness rather than dominates it. As you dream of endless oceans and islands of light, the mystery of MO makes us think about the idea that paradise might not be a place we have lost, but it might still be a possibility that we are capable of creating. Chapter 6. The crystal cities of Shambhala are hidden in the remote regions of the Himalayas. They are beyond the reach of ordinary travelers and hidden from the eyes of satellites. This makes them perhaps the most enduring mystery of the ancient world. Shambhala is the legendary kingdom of crystal cities and enlightened beings. Other lost civilizations were destroyed in catastrophes, but this one is different. Shambhala is said to still exist. It is said to function as a bridge between our physical world and higher dimensions of reality. The name Shambhala appears in many different forms in many different traditions. In Tibetan Buddhism, it is known as the Pure Land. It is a realm where the Dharma is preserved and practiced to perfection. Hindu texts speak of Shambhala as the birthplace of Kalki, the final avatar who will appear at the end of the current age. Theosophical writings describe it as the headquarters of a secret society called the Great White Brotherhood. They are spiritual teachers who are helping humanity evolve from the background. But this is what makes Shambhala particularly intriguing. Unlike places that are only in stories, Shambhala is said to be a real place with its own land, government, and technology. Ancient texts provide detailed maps showing its location. The map shows that it is north of the Himalayas. The map also shows that it is surrounded by snow-capped peaks. The map shows that it is accessible only through hidden mountain passes. These mountain passes only appear to those who are spiritually. Get ready to look for them. The kingdom of Shambhala is believed to be ruled by the Rigdan kings, a group of enlightened rulers who have ruled for thousands of years without interruption. These are not your typical monarchs. They are said to have reached a level of consciousness that allows them to live for centuries while leading their kingdom and influencing world events from a distance. According to different sources, Rigdan Jipo is the current ruler, and he has been in power since the 1920s. What makes Shambhala special? Other legends about hidden kingdoms always describe them as having advanced technology, especially crystal-based energy systems. The capital, Kalapa, is said to be built around a huge crystalline formation. This formation serves both as a source of energy and as a consciousness-amplifying device. This crystal is said to let the people of Shambhala stay in touch with each other telepathically and watch what's happening around the world. The architecture of Shambhala is described in great detail in. There are several texts. The city is supposedly built in concentric circles. The innermost circle contains King Rigdan's palace and the great crystal that powers the entire civilization. Each ring has different structures. There are temples for spiritual practice, libraries with the wisdom accumulated over the centuries, workshops where advanced technologies are developed, and places where people live. The buildings are made from materials that we don't have here. This is the real world. Some accounts describe walls that appear to be made of compressed light, structures that can change their configuration according to the needs of their occupants, and architectural elements that seem to grow and evolve over time rather than remaining static like conventional buildings. Shambhala's crystalline technology is believed to do much more than just generate energy. Different crystals are said to have specific uses. Communication crystals can project images and sounds over. It covers great distances. Healing crystals can diagnose and treat illnesses by acting directly on the body's energy field. Consciousness crystals can improve mental abilities and allow you to reach higher states of consciousness. The most notable crystal in Shambhala is the Chintamani stone, a gem that some say came from space. This stone is said to provide energy to the entire kingdom. This stone is said to be a piece of a much bigger crystal that is found in a star named Sirius. The crystal is said to stay connected to the star, between Shambhala and the cosmic sources of knowledge and energy. The Chintamani stone is said to have appeared in Shambhala thousands of years ago. It was brought there by messengers from the stars. These messengers established the kingdom as an outpost of galactic civilization on Earth. The people of Shambhala are said to be beyond the usual human limits, but they still have a physical body. They supposedly live for hundreds of years, growing old very slowly, if at all, and have psychic powers that let them communicate telepathically and see. Events in the future can be influenced by focusing your thoughts. These abilities aren't considered supernatural. Instead, they're seen as natural human potentials that have been fully developed through advanced training and the supportive environment of the Crystal Cities. People say that Shambhala's educational system is much better than any other in the world. Students learn both theoretical ideas and practical skills for working with energy, consciousness, and the fundamental forces of nature. The curriculum includes subjects such as telepathic communication, energy healing, weather control, and applied metaphysics. All of this is taught by teachers who have fully understood these principles. One of the most interesting things about the Shambhala law is its claim that the realm is like a control station and guide for human civilization. People say that the inhabitants watch the world through their special technology and sometimes step in to stop bad things from happening. They can help or hurt human development. This intervention is not about controlling people, but rather about sharing ideas, inspiration, and opportunities that allow people to make their own choices to develop in a better way. Some people say that several historical figures have been influenced by contact with Shambhala, although such contact is said to be extremely rare. It is said to occur through dreams, visions, or brief encounters that leave the person with enhanced knowledge or abilities. Sometimes new discoveries in science, art, and spirituality come from Shambhala. These discoveries are given to people who are ready to receive and use them. Shambhala's technology includes ways to travel that seem impossible according to our current understanding of physics. There are stories about vehicles that can travel instantly over long distances. These vehicles don't move through space. They manipulate the structure of space itself. These vehicles are said to be powered by crystal technology, guided by consciousness, allows them to appear anywhere in the world in a matter of seconds. Shambhala's agricultural systems are based on principles that focus on both nutrition and spiritual energy. Crops are grown in special gardens where the soil has energy patterns that make the plants healthier. The resulting foods are said to nourish the body and the mind, enhancing one's abilities. This is about the people who live in Shambhala. The climate at Shambhala is kept artificially, and it's done with advanced technology. Even though it's in one of the world's most unfriendly places, the kingdom supposedly has a nice, steady climate all year. This climate control is said to be achieved through crystalline technology that can influence weather patterns and atmospheric conditions within the kingdom's borders. The spiritual practices of Shambhala are said to be based on direct experience. Focus on the idea of a shared universal consciousness rather than on belief in external deities. The people who live there spend a lot of time thinking deeply about life and the world around them. They don't do this to escape real life. They do it to stay connected to the intelligence that guides their civilization. These practices supposedly allow them to maintain their advanced abilities and continue their service to human evolution. The prophecies about Shambhala say that the kingdom will reveal itself to the world and end its hidden existence. It is also known for sharing its knowledge openly with the world. This will happen during a time of global crisis, when human civilization will face challenges that threaten its survival. At that time, the warriors of Shambhala will come to help create a new golden age of peace and enlightenment. People have been searching for Shambhala for centuries. Russian explorer Nicholas Rurik led several expeditions to Central Asia. His goal was to find the kingdom. There were reports of various clues and encounters that suggested it existed. Nazi Germany is said to have sent expeditions to Tibet. They were looking for Shambhala. The Nazis believed that Shambhala had secrets of advanced technology and superhuman abilities. Today, satellite imagery and mapping technology have made it harder for great hidden civilizations to go unnoticed. However, there is no definitive proof that Shambhala exists. Some researchers think that this is because the kingdom exists in another dimension and only some people can see it. Those who have reached a certain level of spiritual growth and awareness. Some people think that Shambhala might be hidden by technology that creates optical illusions or energy fields that block observation. The legend of Shambhala has had a long-lasting impact on human culture and spirituality. The kingdom could be a real place or just a symbol of what humans can do. Either way, it shows that there might be civilizations out there that are more advanced than we are now, working to making humanity better in ways that we don't yet understand. As you fall asleep, imagine yourself approaching the crystal gates of Shambhala through a mountain pass that only appears when your consciousness is correctly aligned. Imagine the city of Kalapa rising before you like a dream come true. Its crystal spires rise towards the stars, which seem closer and brighter than anywhere else on Earth. Picture a large, clear crystal that is filled with a soft light. This light is the same as your heartbeat, and it makes you feel good, going back to a place you have always known but never seen. Whether Shambhala exists in our world or just in our thoughts, its story continues to inspire people who want to go beyond the limits of everyday reality. As you drift off to sleep, let the mystery of Shambhala remind you that paradise doesn't have to be a place we find, but a state of being we can choose to create. Chapter 7. The underwater cities of Poseidon are hidden beneath the waves. It's located in the deepest parts of the Atlantic Ocean, where sunlight never reaches. Some believe that the ruins here are the remains of Poseidon City. Poseidon was the last survivor of the great civilization of Atlantis. The main continent supposedly sank beneath the waves in a single catastrophic event, but Poseidon supposedly survived for thousands of years afterwards. Its inhabitants adapted to an underwater existence using technologies that defy our understanding of what is possible beneath the sea. The story of Poseidon begins. This is the end of the story of Atlantis. According to different stories, when a huge disaster destroyed most of the Atlantean civilization, a few cities survived the first destruction because they had protective technologies that were made for other things. Poseidon, named after the Greek god of the sea, was supposedly the largest and most advanced of these surviving settlements. The name itself is intriguing because it suggests a deep connection between the surviving Atlanteans and the oceanic forces. While the original Atlantis was a land-based civilization that used the sea primarily for transportation and trade, Poseidon represented a fundamental shift in humanity's relationship with the ocean. Poseidon developed technologies that allowed for total integration with underwater environments. The protective systems that saved Poseidon from destruction were reportedly based on advanced crystalline technology. This technology can create energy barriers that deflect enormous forces. These barriers were not hard walls, but the city had energy fields that could change shape. These energy fields could absorb and redirect destructive energies. This allowed the city to survive tsunamis, undersea earthquakes, and sudden submersion. As the ocean floor settled and the new underwater environment stabilized, the inhabitants of Poseidonus were supposedly faced with the challenge of adapting their technology and lifestyle to function beneath the waves. This change took a long time, and many generations of scientists worked on it. This is a new way of thinking about life underwater that is much better than simple underwater technology. Poseidonous energy systems were said to be powered by geothermal sources drawn from underwater volcanic vents, combined with advanced crystalline arrays that could convert various forms of ocean energy into usable energy. The city developed ways to use the movement of ocean currents, the electrical activity of marine life, and even the gravitational effects of tidal movements to create a sustainable energy infrastructure. Reports say that the underwater architecture of Poseidonus looked very different from the surface dwellings. Buildings were not constructed. They were grown using biotechnology. This technology combined coral-like organisms with crystalline structures. Together, they created a living architecture that could self-repair and adapt to changing conditions. These structures were supposed to create relationships with marine ecosystems. They would form artificial reefs. These reefs would support both technological civilization and the natural world. There's a lot of sea life. The most impressive thing about Poseidonian technology was that it could take breathable air out of seawater and keep things comfortable for people living in the underwater city. Reports say that these systems used advanced knowledge of molecular manipulation to separate water into its component elements, creating both a breathable atmosphere and useful materials for construction and manufacturing. The people of Poseidon supposedly underwent significant changes to the body over many years of living underwater. Although they remained essentially human, they supposedly developed greater lung capacity, improved pressure tolerance, and even a limited ability to extract oxygen directly from water through modified respiratory systems. These changes weren't caused by genetic engineering. Instead, humans gradually adapted to living underwater. This was helped by a type of technology that made the body better able to adapt to its environment. Pro-Poseidonian transportation systems were said to be amazing underwater engineering. Instead of vehicles that moved through the water, they supposedly developed methods for manipulating water currents and pressure differences to create transport tubes that could carry passengers over long distances at incredible speeds. These tubes are said to have formed a network connecting Poseidonus with other underwater settlements and even secret facilities on the surface. The relationship between Poseidonus and marine life was said to be cooperative, not dominated by one species over another. The people who lived there developed ways to talk to dolphins, whales, and other smart sea animals. This cooperation also included using marine life as partners in exploration, construction, and defense, creating a truly integrated underwater civilization. Poseidonus farming was based on underwater farming techniques that seem almost impossible according to our current knowledge. They supposedly grew forests of algae and coral gardens that produced food and materials using crystalline technology to make them grow faster and be more nutritious. Some accounts describe underwater orchards where fruit plants grew in air-filled chambers connected to the main city. This created a hybrid environment that combined the best of underwater and surface agriculture. The Poseidonists are said to have made scientific progress in several areas, including marine biology, pressure physics, and other fields. This could be called hydrochemistry. They probably knew more about underwater acoustics than we do. This allowed them to communicate across large ocean distances. They could even use sound waves as tools for construction and manufacturing. One of the most interesting things about Poseidonus law is the idea that the city was a way to control the conditions of the ocean around the world. People think that the people who lived there came up with ways to warn each other about tsunamis, earthquakes under the sea, and other problems in the ocean. It sometimes alerted surface civilizations through carefully placed signals and coded messages. Poseidon's crystalline technology was said to be specifically adapted to underwater conditions. Unlike surface crystals, which primarily functioned with light and atmospheric energies, Poseidon crystals supposedly functioned with pressure waves, underwater electric fields, and the unique energy signals of marine environments. These crystals could affect ocean currents, talk to sea animals, and change the weather on land. Poseidon's culture supposedly changed over time. The Poseidonians were uniquely beautiful incorporating the natural patterns of water movement, the bioluminescence of marine life, and the acoustic properties of underwater environments. Their music used water to create compositions that could be felt as well as heard. The sound waves produced physical sensations and emotional responses in listeners. The spiritual practices of the Poseidons were based on the direct experience of oceanic consciousness, the feeling of being part of. It's a huge network of water systems all connected to each other that covers most of the planet. Meditation practices supposedly involved connecting with the rhythms of the ocean, the tides, and the collective consciousness of marine life. This was said to create states of consciousness that went beyond individual identity. According to different stories, the Poseidonians' decline was not caused by an outside disaster. It was caused by changes in the ocean over time. The Earth's magnetic field shifted and ocean currents changed. This caused changes in energy systems. The source of energy for the city was not as effective. Climate change hurt the ocean animals that the city needed, and even advanced technology could not fix this problem. Some versions of the story suggest that, rather than becoming extinct, the inhabitants of Poseidon gradually left their physical bodies. They did this by using advanced consciousness techniques to maintain their civilization in non-physical dimensions. Some people suggested that they might have moved to other places under the water, maybe in the Pacific or Indian Oceans. They continue to exist beyond the reach of modern detection methods. Ocean explorers have been searching for Poseidon, and they found some strange things happening under the sea in the Atlantic Ocean. Strange sonar readings, mysterious underwater structures, and reports of man-made formations on the ocean floor have been suggested as possible evidence of the lost underwater city. However, it is very hard to explore the deep ocean because it is so deep and the conditions there are harsh. Technology used to explore the deep sea has shown that the ocean floor is much more complex than we thought. Submarine mountain ranges, deep valleys, and large cave systems offer many places where advanced civilizations could have developed and flourished. Some of these places have ecosystems that are very complex and beautiful. The psychological impact of the Poseidon legend highlights humanity's complex relationship with the ocean. We have always loved the sea, but we also recognize that it is very different from the land. The idea of a civilization that has managed to create a human culture that is fully aquatic represents our fascination with the ocean and our desire to go beyond the limitations of our existence on the surface. As you drift off to sleep, imagine yourself going deep into the dark waters of the Atlantic, beyond the reach of sunlight, to very deep depths where the pressure would crush any creature that lives on the surface. Instead of emptiness, you find yourself approaching the gleaming spires of Poseidon, whose bright lights create patterns of beauty that rival any sunset on the surface. Picture gardens of algae moving in controlled currents and clear tubes filled with water that carry people around the city very quickly. Whether Poseidon is a real person or just a made-up character, his story shows that people can change and create new ideas. As you drift off to sleep, imagine yourself in a world beneath the sea, surrounded by beautiful lights and amazing sights. Let the mystery of Poseidon show you that paradise can exist anywhere, as long as there's consciousness and beauty around. Chapter 8. The celestial cities of the Vimana builders are located high above the ancient lands of India. They are beyond the reach of earthly armies and hidden from the eyes of ordinary mortals. Sanskrit texts describe a civilization that learned how to fly thousands of years before the Wright brothers thought about flying from the ground. The Vimana builders, as we might call them, supposedly created not only flying machines, but entire cities that rose into the skies. They established a three-dimensional civilization that spanned both heaven and earth. The word Vimana appears in many different types of ancient Sanskrit literature. It can be found in the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the Puranas, and technical manuals like the Vaika Shastra. But these are not just stories about chariots used by gods. The descriptions are very detailed. They include how to build the ships, how the ships get fuel, how the ships navigate, and even how to fight in space. What makes these accounts particularly intriguing is their technical precision. The Vimanika Shastra, attributed to the sage Bharaja, is like a complete engineering manual. It has diagrams, specifications, and troubleshooting guides. It talks about different types of manas that serve different purposes. Some are designed for short trips, while others can travel between planets. Some are described as single-person vehicles, while others are enormous flying cities capable of housing thousands of inhabitants for what it is intended to be used. Some are designed for short trips, while others can travel between planets. Some are described as single-person vehicles, while others are huge flying cities capable of housing thousands of inhabitants. The Shikuna of Mana is described as a bird-shaped craft that can move very quickly and easily. The text explains how to build them, including which metals to use, how to connect the different parts, and what ceremonies to perform. This should be done during assembly. It seems the ship used a mix of mechanical propulsion and spiritual energy to fly. The Sundur of Mana was designed for luxury travel. It has multiple levels, gardens, and artificial climate systems that can create a pleasant environment no matter what the outside conditions are like. These flying palaces were used by royalty and high-ranking officials to travel comfortably from the Indian subcontinent to other regions. Perhaps the most remarkable thing was the Amana's pushbacks. They are described as vehicles that can fly to any destination simply by mental command. The pilot would just have to imagine where he wanted to go, and the plane would take care of the rest, navigating around obstacles and adjusting its course as needed. These vehicles were said to use advanced artificial intelligence systems powered by crystalline matrices that could interact directly with human consciousness. The propulsion systems described in the Sanskrit texts are similar to modern jet engines, but they have additional capabilities that we don't have yet. The texts describe Mercury engines that could generate a lot of power, solar collectors that could capture sunlight, and anti-gravity systems that could control gravity to make flight easy. One interesting way to move a ship is with Vimanika crystals. These are special gems that can convert different forms of energy into directed thrust. These crystals were designed to interact with the Earth's magnetic field, creating lift and propulsion. Vimanika crystals were special gems that were said to be able to convert different forms of energy into directed thrust. These crystals were believed to be programmed with specific vibration patterns that interacted with the Earth's magnetic field, creating lift and propulsion without any visible exhaust or noise. The celestial cities built by the Verman builders were said to be amazing examples of architecture built in the sky. These flying cities were different from modern aircraft, which are designed mainly for transport. Communities that can take care of themselves and stay in the air for a long time. They included gardens, temples, residential areas, and industrial facilities. All of these were designed to function in the unique environment of perpetual flight. The largest of these celestial cities was supposedly called Haranapura, the Golden City, and was the capital of the aerial civilization. This enormous structure was described as being several kilometers in diameter with multiple levels connected by walkways and transport systems that defy gravity. The city. It is said to have housed hundreds of thousands of people. The ruling class was in charge of the large flying vehicles. The engineers maintained the complex systems that kept the city in the air. The builders of these celestial cities had to solve problems that builders on Earth never had to face. How do you build strong structures that can handle the constant movement of flying? How do you keep the air pressure and oxygen levels right for breathing at high altitudes? What is the best way to provide water and waste management systems that actually work? Does it matter what the orientation is? Ancient texts suggest that the builders of Mana solved all these challenges using technologies that seem almost magical to us today. The energy systems of the celestial cities were reportedly based on solar energy capture and storage technologies that far exceeded our current capabilities. Huge crystalline panels could collect solar energy during the day and store it in special batteries for use during night flights. These systems are believed to have been so efficient that the energy collected in one day is enough to power the whole city for a week. The agricultural systems of the flying cities were said to be particularly advanced. They used techniques that maximized food production in the limited space available on board the flying vehicles. Hydroponic gardens, artificial lighting systems, and accelerated growth techniques supposedly allowed the aerial cities to produce all the food their inhabitants needed without ever touching the ground. The navigation systems described in the text are similar too. This is a modern GPS, but it has more features than our current technology. Vimana builders are thought to have used a network of ground beacons, astronomical observation systems, and maybe even psychic navigation techniques to keep track of their position and direction. But perhaps the most extraordinary aspect of the Vimana civilization was its supposed ability to travel not only through the Earth's atmosphere, but beyond to other worlds. Some texts describe journeys to the Moon, Mars, and even destinations even farther away. The Surya Siddhanta is an ancient book about astronomy. It has calculations that show that the ancient people who wrote it knew a lot about how planets move and how far away they are. But modern astronomy didn't confirm this until the space age.